Planet Boss. Whoop, whoop. One forward, one backwards. By now, you're going to have to know this. My fourth fight against Vernon Tiger White. What a great name that is. Vernon, great guy, by the way. Always a jokester. You know what he did, actually? Because he didn't know that, so I forgave him. You know, so this was not payback, this fight. I forgave him. In the morning, he was knocking on my door. They were going to get breakfast. What he didn't know is that I come from Holland. And our time difference is completely opposite as it is from when you come from America to Japan. When you go from America to Japan, it's a very easy jet lag. You fall asleep early and you wake up early. In Holland, it's completely different. You know, you fall asleep like 7 a.m. in the morning, because that is like, say, 11 o'clock at night for your body, and then you want to sleep. But in the morning, just before I went to sleep, he knocked on the window really hard, on the door. He says, hey, come have breakfast. And now I was awake. And I only slept like 2 hours or 3 hours, and I couldn't sleep anymore because now the fight is going on. You know, it's like, okay, you start thinking about the fight, all that stuff happens. Anyway, this is the very first fight after my last loss. My first loss, actually, after my last breakdown against Funaki Masakatsu. It was by way of toe hold. And if you are here for the very first time, you go like toe hold, and you didn't see the other video, you're going to go, they just hold a toe like this? Nah, they don't. Trust me, my ankle was freaking like this. I actually saw John Lober against Ryushi Yanagisawa, who was my very first opponent. John Lober broke his shin bone because of a toe hold. So it's a very powerful move. But now, I got inspired a little bit and I wanted to do leg locks. Okay, so my main goal of my main submission was always the guillotine. And I was really good with the guillotine because it was the only submission I knew. It's the striker's submission is what they call it. Because guess what? If you're good strikers, they're going to shoot in. And once they shoot in, well, the head's going to be here at one moment, and then you grab it and you go for a guillotine choke. Nowadays, there's great defenses and all for it. Doesn't really matter. At that particular time, it was the go-to move from me. So, I also started, because of my last loss by way of toe hold, dabble a little bit into the leg locks. And you will see this in this fight as well. Now, let's start with this fight. First of all, the week before, I thought it was smart of me not to hit the bag or not to spar anymore because you only can get injured, right? So I did another smart thing. Not smart. Note to self, don't do that, okay? So that's another thing that you shouldn't do. I went to the forest to train and to run. And while I'm running there, because I always like the forest, because I have to take these paths up and going down, you have to watch out where you put your feet, you know, and it takes the mind off. If I'm just on the road and just running or on a treadmill, I get bored really fast, and once you get bored and you start thinking about your stamina, this is when the stamina goes down, of course. It's never fun. So I don't do on the treadmill hill sprints or something like that. I can't do monotone running. So I decided to go to the forest and go into those hills and, you know, and avoid all these crazy obstacles. Well, I didn't avoid one. But my ankle, I fell on the ground. I think I sat there for, well, 10, 15 minutes, which is a very long time, sitting there. It was pretty cold also because it was April. April in Holland is pretty cold, just like it is here in Texas right now. But I got better. I hopped back to the car, and once I was in the car, I go, ooh, this is not going to be good for the fight. So there's not going to be any kicking for me. I knew that already. Because 2 days later, I had to fly to Japan. Now flying, of course, is not going to help you as well, because with the pressure and everything and the injury, it got a little bit worse. The only person who knew about it was my manager. Nobody else. So I packed it in, and once I entered the hotel, nobody could tell that I was injured. Trust me. I put on a poker face and just walked around, because I knew if somebody knows, well, it's the first thing they're going to attack. But you know what it is with things like that? It's almost like you're sending out a signal unknowingly to your opponent. It says, hey, my left ankle is hurt. Go attack my left ankle. Because if you watch the fight, and you will see this fight, the first thing he does is actually he dives, takes me down, and he freaking attacks that leg. You will also see me at that moment to want to roll into a knee bar. I was going to try it out, but then the referee stands us up for some reason. I don't know till this day why he stood us up. I think we were both going for submission. I think I had the better one, you know, not finished yet. But I was working it because a toe hold is very effective when the leg is bent. Any submission is the best, and I'm talking about heel hooks, toe holds, and inverted heel hooks. When the leg is bent, of course, a knee bar, the leg is stretched. But if you have a toe hold and you can stretch your leg, and if you can't stretch your leg, you can also remove your body from the foot because that will have the same effect, right? A lot of people don't know this. But imagine this. Imagine, you see, if I push here on my hand, I cannot push forward because you feel it. It's kind of a submission, right? But if I want to have my leg stretched, or my arm stretched, well, I can't. But what I can do also is I can move my upper body away from my hand. And when I do that, well, the end result is the same. I have a stretched arm. You see, a lot of people don't get that. They really try to force it. I say, don't force it. Just move your whole body out of the way because then your leg stretches as well. So I did that also with the toe hold because I knew that was the escape, and then I went into in a knee bar attempt, but the referee put us back on. Then he came and he shot in again, and Conor McGregor was talking about this. He did a really nice piece on me one time. He was visiting the gym, and he was talking about the fact that he already heard me on the radio, is what he called, because those were my workout tapes. It's audio. And I knew a lot of people, like a lot of pros actually, are using those audio tapes, because I came up with those audio tapes because I thought, why would I waste 20 minutes of skipping rope when I can use those 20 minutes in actually throwing combinations, because combinations is actually something I'm going to do in a fight. See? And if you work out 10 times a day, 10 times a week like I do, it's 200 minutes. Let's say, give or take 3 hours and 20 minutes. It's a week. 3 hours and 20 minutes a week. Is that good? Am I saying this correctly, right? I think I am, right? That over a whole training camp is a lot of hours extra for you to be punching and kicking instead of using stupid rope skipping. That's why I came up with those ideas. But what Conor McGregor also talked about was the high-end guillotine that I had. I had this guillotine that I pulled my elbows really high up, the high elbow guillotine, because it was really freaking tight, and that's what you're going to see right now in this fight, because he shoots in and boom, there's the guillotine. A fun moment from that part is that at the moment there were rope escapes in Pancrase. I explained this one time, and otherwise you're going to have to go back to the first episode to say, first fight from Bas. I will explain the rules of Pancrase. But if he was able to touch the rope, I have to let him go. It's the same as an 8 count, so that if the fight goes to a decision, well, he grabbed the rope one time, I'm going to win. It works kind of like that. And there were also 8 counts. It was either grabbing a rope or an 8 count. But you see his hand going very close to the rope, and I'm looking, I see him doing it, and I pull him away, just outside the range. So he wants to tap it, and I start pulling him back. He almost had it. I gave him that early feeling of, I'm going to make it a bit, I think I can, like Thomas the Train. But he couldn't because I was pulling him back. That was it. That was the Vernon Tiger White fight. Now that evening though, I believe it was that evening, we went out with a bunch of fighters. We always went out. You know, the thing with us was this. You know, during your training camp you can't do anything. Right? You can't drink, you can't party. That's impossible because you're going to have to work out and otherwise you're going to get injured. But after a fight, you know, 2-3 days, we go ballistic. We go crazy and then we shoot back in training camp again, because normally, well, I fought my first year in Pancrase, I think 8 fights. And my next year I fought 9 fights. I mean, we're fighting on a high freaking pace. So we go out and we have fun. And we go to this place, Gas Panic. You will hear this a bunch of times. The name Gas Panic, because a lot of bar fighting happened there. It was always with foreigners. They got rowdy, they got drunk, and then they always got into fights. I talked to fights with the fake Navy SEALs that was there, with a whole bunch of other guys. I'll tell you a funny one. It was not even a fight. Actually, I'm walking in there, and there is this wall. It's how do I say it? When they have an elevator go up, so it's like a square thing, and there's a stairs that you can go up. Anyway, there's a guy, and it's a mosaic wall. You know, these little tiny square glass, not just regular like ceramic or something, glass thing. So it was apparently it was very sharp. The corners were very sharp. I didn't even know, didn't even pay notice. That came later because of this story. I hear this guy screaming, and he's a pretty big guy, bigger than I was. And he's holding this, and both foreigners, so I think it's his girlfriend. He's have her up with his hand against her chest, and he's finger in her face, and he's screaming very loud. The people are freaking out. So I just walk over and I grab him by the back of his neck here, by his shirt, and I literally just do this and throw him back. And I ask her if she's okay. And then people started screaming, and I'm looking, and the guy's on the ground. And I go, where's the guy on the ground? What happened was, with the little mosaic things, there was the corner, and apparently, I mean, he had a cut like on the side, like from here to here. He went with his face against that, and he was out. He was almost like hugging the corner. It was really weird to find him in that position. So I'm looking, I go, what happened? I thought somebody else hit him, as payback for what he was doing, but it was me. I just threw him back. He lost his balance, and because he's a big guy with his weight, I guess he turned and he fell with his face against that corner, and it was open. And it was bleeding. It was a nice flesh wound. That's what Monty Python would say. So I saw him wake up. Everything was okay. I said, hey, dude, do you know where you are? Yeah, in Japan, in Tokyo. I go, no, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I don't even know that he knew that was me because he wasn't looking at me. I just grabbed him and pulled him back. This was literally the move that I did. It was not hard at all. So, but it was my cue to leave the scene because I was afraid people would start pointing. And then we have to go to round number 2. I just had my fresh clothes on. I didn't want to have any blood on my clothes. So we stopped it. Now, gas betting, there was always fun for other fights as well. I'll tell you one more. It's a short one. It was with Guy Metzger. Guy Metzger has this guy who wants to fight him. And constantly we tell the guy, don't fight. And the guy starts flicking out sidekicks in front of his face. And I go, oh, this is going to be so ugly. This is not going to be good because the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He thinks he can. He's watching a movie. And I tell Guy, I go, Guy, the guy has no clue. He says, I know, don't worry. So what do? I go, when we're with the bunch of fighters, I say, just choke him out. So he immediately shoots in on the guy, didn't even take him down, goes on the armpit, and he chokes him out. The guy goes, he puts him down. I go, okay, let's go party now. But it was Guy. Guy was always the gentleman. He was the really nice guy who would try to stop the fights. With the whole thing with the fake seals that I had, he was also the guy who said, guys, don't go outside with this guy, just let's stop it. But that's another story. I believe I already talked about that one. This next one, Takahashi. Takahashi was that was my 5th fight. He was kind of the boss Rutan from Japan. And we're not talking about skill-wise, although he was an animal. Well, not that I consider myself an animal, but at the time I was much more an animal than I am now. But he was a crazy man afterwards also. We were partying a lot. The guy was also a drinker, and you click. If you're crazy and insane, and another person is crazy and insane, doesn't matter what country you come from, you guys click, and then there's a bond. And I had that with him. So he's a very nice guy. Not before this fight yet, though, because that was only the 5th fight. It took a while, a few years, for everybody to start to become comrades. In Pancrase. Anyway, so I have, and I told this story before, but a lot of people don't know this story if you're watching it right now. So I'm going to retell it. John Blooming was next to Mas Oyama. Now, Mas Oyama is the founder of Kyokushin Karate. He's the guy who used to knock out bulls with his fists. He would knock them out. I mean, it was insane. This guy started the hardest form of karate called Kyokushin Karate, what I just talked about. And the highest gaijin, that's the foreigner, next to him was John Blooming. John Blooming is from Holland. He's got the 11th degree Kyokushin, and Mazoyama, I believe, had 12. So he's really high up the freaking ladder. He came to Japan to watch me fight. And I believe Sammy Shields was there as well, who later became the 4-time K1 champion. He's a really great striker. He actually did good in Pancrase as well. Tall guy, 7 feet tall, look him up, animal. Anyway, we're walking on the street and we hear the promo. We hear this voice, Hybrid Wrestling, Pancrase. And we're looking. I actually met the guy in a freaking supermarket in California one time. He goes, hey boss, you don't know me. I was the guy. And he did the voice. I go, dude, you're the voice. Anyway, his voice, we heard that, and we all turn around, and there's this giant screen. And I'm talking about a building. There's a building, and most of the building is covered by this screen. And the first thing we see is me knocking out a guy. My very first fight against Aji, Yanagisawa. Poof. And we go, whoa, it was the promotion for the next day when we were going to fight. And I'm looking, because it's cool to watch, right? You see yourself, you see other people fighting, and there's this moment when somebody sits in half guard, which I didn't have a lot of understanding about at that time, and he's going for an inverted heel hook. He grabs the leg, and he falls back, he goes for an inverted heel hook. So I'm looking back, and I'm saying to John Blooming, the 11th degree Kyokushin guy, I go, dude, that's a cool move, I gotta remember that. So the next day I'm fighting, and what do you know, I'm in that position. Now in Pancrase we wore shoes. And shoes and leg locks, not a good combination. Good combination for the person who wants to apply a leg lock, but for the person who gets the leg lock applied, not so good. It's very hard to escape because, it's a shoe. you know. Otherwise, the foot easily slips out, especially when it starts getting moist, you know, from sweat. It's easier to slip out. Shoe isn't. I only saw the move. I had no clue how much pressure I was going to put on this guy's knee. So I grabbed the heel, whoop, grab it, and I just fall backwards. Now I know that you shouldn't do that, especially not in training, but even in a fight, because you will really damage somebody. So while I'm falling back, I hear a pop. And you see me, I go pop, 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 and I let go, and I go, oh, oh. So his knee popped. That's what we thought. And he gets up, and the referee is freaking out. I'm freaking out, I think the fight's over, and he's standing, and he holds his knee, and he goes, no, he's okay. And I go like, I heard a pop, this is crazy. But I knew he was a crazy guy, and he was a very tough guy. So, okay, well, whatever. What we didn't know was that his shin bone that was what we heard pop. His shin bone was cracked. The crack, that's what we heard. So now, we're busy, I throw a kick, and then he throws a kick. And I just let him kick my thigh, and I'm flexing. And then you see the leg, it completely snaps off. It wraps a little bit around my waist. He puts his foot down, and then you see it whoop, bending outside. That was the shin bone. He broke his shin bone in half. Yeah, that was not so fun. I believe I told about this, talked about this in the past, because he ended up in the hospital, ended up in an infection. He was like 8 months in the hospital because of an infection that got in there. I went to visit him in the hospital. That was not a fun sight. It was all, yeah, it was a poor guy. I didn't really want to do that. But hey, now I know that once you do an inverted heel hook, to not just grab it and then let body weight do the rest. You want to do that on the street, but you don't want to do that in a fight, first of all, and you don't want to do that in training, of course. In a fight, pause, but in a fight, anything goes. Yeah, still, you don't really want to damage your opponents, right? Depends on who he is and what he has said before to you, of course, because sometimes they get in your face and they say really bad stuff. Yeah, then you're kind of allowed to do it a little bit because he's asking for it, right? While he was screaming at you, he was kind of saying, please, when you get me in a submission, hurt me, okay? That's what happens when people talk crap to you. And that's why I always said, don't talk crap. Because if you talk crap, first of all, you're going to have to back it up. And that's a lot of pressure. And it all sounds cool. I'm right here in the front of you right now, and I say, hey, listen, man, the next guy I'm going to get, this guy's nobody. I mean, I'm going to rip his head off. I'm going to take a dump in his neck. I'm going to just... The guy's a nobody. Well, that video, they're going to show on a big screen before you come out. And now you hear you sing, now you get the nerves, because now you're going to have to fight. And then you see yourself say, the guy's a nobody. I'm going to rip his head off. I'm going to take a dump in his neck. That's a lot of pressure, because now you better do what you just said you were going to do. And if that's too much pressure for some people, I had a few students like that who would do that, and I always told them, do not do it. It's way too much pressure, and that might make you lose the fight. For any... a tip for any fighter who wants to start, and after the very first fight, if you're super nervous, you know, but you still want to try it again, it doesn't matter if you win or lost, you know, because even if you win, if you're super nervous, you need to overcome that first. The biggest thing for me, what I always tell my students, or would do to my students, I would let them fight out of state. And I would tell them not to tell anybody that I had a fight coming up. This is important. Because if you tell the whole world what you're going to do, I'm going to fight, because it's cool, right? You want to say, hey, I got a fight coming up, cage fight, oh, sounds cool, mixed martial arts. Yeah, you put a lot of pressure on yourself. But if you don't say anything, and you're fighting out of state, nobody's going to know you fought. If you win, you come back and say, hey, just fought a fight, I won. If you lose, you don't even have to say it. You see what I mean? It's much easier. It takes a lot of the pressure off. And then until you start feeling comfortable and actually start thinking, because a lot of guys say, oh no, I was thinking. You weren't thinking. We were screaming at you, you didn't hear what I was saying. So as long as you can't hear what we are saying, you're not thinking, you're on automatic pilot. The only guy that I have in my head who would be like this, Hector Pena. Unfortunately, he was a good friend, he passed away. But that was just a natural fighter. It was almost, he had no clue how he was doing it, but everything he did was like, what the heck? You know, because he was just an animal. He was just a born fighter. He got in there and he just took care of business. 13 world titles, highest decorated Mexican fighter of all times in the kickboxing at the time. So yeah, he was a complete animal. So that's it. Always take the pressure off yourself. Look at the fights. Learn from your fights. If you lost a fight, you know, like I did the last time that I talked about the Funaki fight, and you saw me lose by toe hold, that's okay, guys. If you lose by toe hold, just make sure that you learn from that mistake. You will never lose by way of toe hold again. And if you do that, that means that that loss just made you a stronger fighter. because now you're not going to lose by toe hold anymore. You see? And this is how I approach fighting all the time. And again, I talked about this as well, but some people watch that episode, some people doesn't want to watch that episode, but this, they do want to watch it, and that's why I'm repeating myself. Relaxation is everything. Stamina is the most important thing. Of course, technique, but I think once you decide to start fighting, right, your technique should be there. You shouldn't need to work on technique anymore. If you want to learn a new move in the last week, it's the dumbest thing there is. You already should know what you're going to do. Forget about the new moves. What you should focus on is stamina, stamina, stamina. You can have there's no such thing as having enough stamina. And for all the tough guys out there who like to bench press and like to work out with weights, at least 2 weeks before the fight, don't touch any freaking weights. And once you do that, and then you start stretching your intercostal muscles, the muscles in between your ribs, so you keep your chest flexible. The more flexible your chest is, the better stamina you will have. Please take it to the heart. I've seen a guy bench pressing the day before a fight at the Fight Fighting Championship. Guess what? How fast he gassed out. I could say that right away there, because you make everything tight around your chest. Your lungs open up by way of chest expansion. If you can't expand your chest, you can't fill up your lungs. Only a little bit. But if you freaking open up and they're flexible, and you stretch them, that's a whole different ballgame. So make sure that you don't forget to stretch those muscles as well, including, of course, all the other muscles. And what I always say, if you're cutting weight, go gentle on the stretching, because if once the fluids get out of the tendons and the soft tissue, you know, it's not a good thing. You might start tearing stuff. And for all the people, I don't know if I remember, I don't remember that I said this, but it's important too. It's kind of out now, but there was a long time, a lot of fighters used GHB, you know, and it was great to go to sleep with and for stuff, you know. It's, of course, it's really bad because it's what they call the date rape drug. But officially, before it was labeled the date rape drug, it was actually a very healthy thing. Makes your liver, renews your liver, you burn fat more, there was some more, it produces more growth hormone, your own body produces hormone. If you read the benefits, it's actually really good, until some knuckleheads, you know, started giving it to ladies, and they passed out, and they start, well, doing bad stuff, and start filming it. It's, yeah, I want to get caught, right? So thankfully they got caught, you know, but now, of course, they labeled that as a date rape drug, but officially it was good, so some fighters were still using it to go to sleep, because you don't want to take sleep medication. That stuff, though, watch out, because it dehydrates you like a maniac. So it's also good for weight cutting. But the problem with that is, I had a lot of guys who tore muscles. And every time when they tore something, I said, let me ask you, will you use GHB to go to sleep? You go, how do you know? I go, every single person who tears something before a fight, I'm asking the same question. And a lot of these guys were using it. So watch out with that stuff if you're still using it to go to sleep before a fight. And otherwise, don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything because they're not taking it. Just take a lot of fluids. All right, everybody, I will see you the next time again. Godspeed and party on. My fourth fight, Vernon Tiger White. I was running, jogging in the woods, and I injured my ankle here really bad. And what do you know? Watch this. I'm sprawling out, actually, unbelievable, because I didn't know that either in the beginning. And he goes for my ankle that's hurt. And he doesn't know it right now, but that thing really hurt it, where he was busy with. I tried to go for a knee bar, as you saw there, but then the referee broke it up. Why? God only knows. You see me stamping my left foot because my ankle was hurt, and he attacked it right away. If he only would have known, huh? Left hook right straight, and here's the famous guillotine. And listen to me, I had the best guillotine because it was pretty much the only weapon I had. He's trying to reach the rope. I pull him away from the rope. And there is the tap out. Okay, in this corner you see Andre van den Oetelaar. He went to the Olympics as a boxer. I trained with him too on boxing. And the other guy you saw in the corner was my manager. There he is, Clovis Dupré. He's running the Bas Rutten Academy right now in Europe for me. There, also a big hand for Vernon Tiger White, because hey, he stepped in and he did his job. Now this is a funny story, because the finishing move of this fight I saw one day before on a big screen in Tokyo, in the center of Tokyo. Okay, here we go. This is Takahashi, the guy who beat Walid Ismail in the UFC. Ooh, the knee to the head. He took it like a man. And now he's in my guard. I tried to push to the side. I go for a side choke. This is a nice shot of the referee's ass. And watch, he's going now for a leg lock. He's trying to spin around. 1, 2, he's going for a knee bar. But here I was learning a little bit to stay out of leg locks. Now at this, I saw a day before on a big screen, like I said before, in Tokyo. Watch. I grab his knee, pull his knee, grab his arm, and here we heard something snap. I thought it was his knee that snapped, and you will see him holding his knee, and he thought the same thing. What actually happened was his shin bone broke half, so he continues to fight. And watch what's going to happen now. I'm setting him up. Right kick, inside low kick, and now he kicks. And he blocks. And I don't know if you saw it. We will get it in the rerun, in the slow-mo. But there you saw his leg bending out and his shin broke completely here. This was not such a nice experience for me, because yeah, this could ruin somebody's career here. You see it 1 minute 37 seconds. He spent so many months in the hospital. He spent like 6 months in the hospital. It took 13 months for him to recover. He got a very bad infection. Here we go. Look for the heel hook. I heel hook him, and it snaps. I see his pain, and it slips out. I kind of let go. And now watch his left leg when he plants it down. Whoop, you see it bending to the left. Now I wanted to kick him in the head, but I saw at his face that he was in pain, so I left that kick away, of course. Here they're taping his leg. Yeah, like this tape really is gonna help.